Don't you just love that theme? A blast from the past. I can crank that up in the car all day long. All right, my guest this afternoon has had a busy career in showbiz, having appeared in notable shows like Murder, She Wrote, MacGyver, Matlock, The Love Boat, Hardcastle, McCormack, and Fantasy Island, to name a few. But we all remember him from his days patrolling the LA freeways from 1977 till 1982 with his partner Frank Poncherello on the iconic television show CHiPs. I'm so thrilled to have this gentleman on my show this afternoon, folks. Folks, actor, producer, Mr. Larry Wilcox. Larry, first of all, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
First of all, Larry, thank you so much for your service. I didn't know you were a Vietnam vet. Thank you so much.
Yeah, long time ago, good old Marine Corps.
God bless you. God bless you. Larry, I want to start off early in your career because you moved out to California from Wyoming after freshman year of college, and you actually contemplated a career in music. Is that right?
Yeah, I studied music at the Beverly Hills Music Academy, and then I kind of vacillated between medicine, meaning becoming a doctor, or something less stable like music and acting, you know?
Yeah, right. And you were encouraged by somebody that you should become an actor.
Yeah, I met this, I was kind of anachronism, if you will. I was out of place in California because I was really polite and naive. And
wasn't working for you?
Yeah, it worked actually, but I thought it was just how everyone was, but in retrospect, it had a lot to do with etiquette. So I would stand up when a lady comes in the room and say, "Yes, ma'am," and "Thank you," and "May I please be excused?" And so as a result, I met this older lady who was a drama coach, Lois Auer, A-U-E-R. And Mrs. Auer asked me, would I be interested in acting because I look like Boy Next Door. And have I done any acting? I said, yeah, I did some in plays in high school as a show off, but that's about it, And she said, well, why don't you come to a few of my classes? And so I went there and studied for probably 2 to 4 years for free.
Oh, wow.
I told her,
beautiful.
I said, I don't have any money, and everyone else was paying. And I said, I'm putting myself through school and college, and so I don't have any money. And she said, that's all right. You come here and you can come for free. She got me an agent and got me started in the business. It was great.
Wow. And how are you paying the rent?
I worked part-time in various jobs. I'd worked at a gas station, pumping gas on Wilshire and La Cienega in Beverly Hills. Oh, wow. Saw some of the most beautiful women in the world every day.
Right on. Amen. Amen.
And then I worked on a telephone company as a cable splicer, and I'd get little odd jobs here and there.
I mean, in a lot of ways, was it like like I said, you're from Wyoming, and was it like a culture shock to be out in L.A. for you?
Yeah, I think it was lonely in the beginning because I was such a hick. I didn't have any girlfriends or relationships, and so it was like, dude, who's gonna? That girl's not gonna hang out with you. Every girl that was my age looked like she was 5 years older than me, Right. And they were more mature and I don't know, just more worldly, if you will. So that part was kind of lonely, and then I didn't have much money to do anything, so there wasn't a lot of extracurricular activity. Basically, eating and working and sleeping.
Yeah. So, Larry, you're digging ditches and taking acting classes in night school, and in 1972, you got the part as Dale Mitchell on the television show TV's Lassie. Talk about that. How you got that? Was that your first gig?
Well, my first gigs were television commercials. I did a U.S. Army commercial. And let's see, I just saw one someone found today.
Oh, wow.
A Schlitz beer.
You did a Schlitz beer commercial?
I don't think they have Schlitz anymore.
I don't think they have Schlitz anymore.
And then I did an Alka-Seltzer commercial, and those were my first jobs. And a Sears commercial for Sears and Roebuck. And then after that, I read for a Western series, and it looked like I was going to get that, and then at the last minute, I didn't. That would have been a starring role.
Did you have an agent back then?
I had two old ladies that were my agent, and the Gene Halliburton agency. I think they represented Alan Ladd or somebody long time ago, right? And me. So anyway, then I got Lassie. I went and read, and 300 actors are there reading from every day, and then have callbacks for the next 20 top guys, and then they'd have callbacks again to 10, and eventually I got it, and Lassie's the star and the co-star. But it was fun. We got to travel around in Lear jets, which I'd never been used to, and we went to different cities, and we remember some girls from Canada were there, and they heard we were actors, right? And it was like
movie stars.
And wanted our autograph. Hell, I didn't know any better. I signed something for them. I must have written a paragraph. They only wanted my name, but I wrote a paragraph. So it was a learning experience.
Oh, wow. So after you do Lassie, Chips came calling. Talk about how you got did you even audition for Chips?
No, I didn't have to. He picked me for Chips, but the producer saw me in a movie. Well, he saw me in Hawaii Five-0.
Wow.
And
Jack Lord. How was Jack Lord? Because I had a few guests on. Tell me about Jack Lord if you can for a second.
Well, he was always professional, not warm and charming.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, that's what I heard about him.
And he kind of liked to do the work and get out of there, I think, and so he didn't want to be your friend or anything.
Right, that's what I heard. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And Jimmy McGregor, was that Jimmy's? Can't think of Jimmy's last name. He's a famous guy. His partner on Hawaii Five was a really nice guy.
Right.
And then I did a movie, The Great American Beauty Contest with Farrah Fawcett was my girlfriend in that. And that was hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, Jimmy MacArthur.
Yeah, Jimmy MacArthur. Thank you. He's a good guy. It still is. And anyway, after Farrah Fawcett's in that movie, Rick Rosner was the producer and asked me to do Chips, and I turned it down. And I had this manager named Herbie Nanis who was Stallone's manager.
Oh wow!
And he was leaving my agency to go just be with Stallone, which was frustrating to me because I really needed him to stay in my stable. But anyway, he did leave. And he just kept negotiating a better price for me to do this television series because by then I started thinking I was an actor. Yeah. And Chips was beneath me.
Come on.
So anyway, I did it, and it was great.
Now, so you get the role as Chips. Did you even know who Eric Estrada was at the time? I mean, I don't. You guys are pretty much just right coming up, obviously.
Yeah, no, I never heard of Eric Estrada, and they brought actors in, and then I was supposed to pick who I thought would be best, and I actually picked somebody else. But in retrospect, I think Eric was the best for the role, and it was our chemistry which made the show, and he became kind of a teen idol during those times, and now he's a cop.
Yeah, he's a real cop. Imagine that. Was there a point in the first, second, maybe third season where you said to yourself, wow, this is huge?
Yeah, there's a weird evolution. I mean, the first evolution is you're rolling in cash. So you just can't believe how much money you're making. But if you were smart enough to sit down and prorate that over the next 20 years, then you would say, ooh, settle down. This may not last, right? You have a shelf life. And so, second, third year, by then we were kind of a big deal, and Chips was, top 10 show, and everywhere we'd go, there'd be teeny boppers and autograph seekers and stuff. And so, it was interesting. I mean, I've never been impressed with the film business, but it was satisfied a young man's ego. And as a young man, you know, all your doubts and all your confidences, some real, some unreal, are being taunted in those years. And so in my case, I got to satisfy them all and get over those, what I call identity crises.
Right. You know, I always mention this on my show that a lot of people, they're enamored with fame and celebrity, like there's some type of celebrity heaven. Like everybody they go somewhere different. You know what I mean? It's just, you can see it. It's just, sometimes it gets a little silly, you know, I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I don't think, you know, I mean, I always say I think I was pretty well grounded, but on the other hand, you know, in some ways I wasn't, and it does affect you. And then what you're doing is marketing yourself all the time. So what most people would construe as indulgence or egocentric is really just marketing in some cases. However, the product being yourself, sometimes that person becomes believing their own marketing. Right. That's the problem.
Yeah, and a lot of them, obviously, they're very damaged people. A lot of them you see nowadays.
Yes,
nowadays, very
doubt,
very damaged.
Yes,
Larry, chips compared to obviously what today is. I mean, I grew up in that era, and you know, you're thinking of a cop show. There should be some blood and guts in there, but that's what the beauty was of Chips. There was none of that, and it was a family show actually. It was you know. People could sit around on Sunday nights at 8:00 and watch Chips.
Yeah, you know, today when we go sign autographs at Comic-Cons, Eric Estrada and myself, and Robert Pine sometimes, the sergeant.
Good job.
The thing that people is kind of, there's two things that they say make me proud and happy. And one is that they come up and their eyes are almost teary-eyed and they say, wow, my dad and my grandpa, we used to always sit down and watch Chips together. It was just so much fun, and he brought so much joy in our living room or household, you know. And that's one. And then actually there's three things. And then two, then what's kind of entertaining, there'll be a 40-year-old plus lady who all of a sudden has become 12 again when she had her crush on you. And she's standing next to her husband, and she's not sure which passion to express here, right? And at this point in time, so that's always touchy, and you have to be sensitive to everybody concerned there. And then the third one is cops. You know, cops come up all the time and say, wow, you guys, you're the reason I chose this profession and the reason I became a police officer. So thank you so very much for what you stood for. So, yeah, it was a positive show. CHP doubled their applications during their time.
Wow.
It's pretty cheesy and corny today because, you know, everything today is on the edge and soft porn and violence.
It's horrible.
So,
it's just garbage. It's my opinion. I mean, I'm a big movie and television guy, and you know, the golden days are gone, in my opinion. But
yes,
you know, was that Chips? Was those two characters? Those are real life characters, Ponch and John?
Yeah, mine was based on a guy who was a self-defense trainer and a motor officer, Bob Hayden. That was his name, and Robert Hayden. And he was a good guy. He could have done my role. He was a tall, handsome guy, and was really a good guy. I don't know what Eric's character was based on, or if they made that up or what, but he was a wild one, you know.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Speaking of your time in the service, you were among the first characters on a television series to be identified as a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, a lot of times I'll see. Well, most people don't know that I was a Vietnam veteran. It seems like, you know, but. Then I did all those speeches for POW MIAs and back in Washington, D.C. and in California when, Vietnam wasn't really trendy, as you remember. And I came home to San Francisco with all the idiots spitting and all the other stuff.
Right.
But you know, my 13 months in the Marine Corps in Vietnam were not so bad. I mean, I saw a lot of ugly stuff, but I also had a lot of really great relationships, and I saw a lot of characters, strong leaders that had to perform or get killed, you know, and they were, those guys, when they step up, they really step up. So that was great. And then I don't know, knowing I kept trying to sell a movie about Vietnam. No one wants to see that. They've seen it every day in the news for the last X amount of years. But then it became the flavor of the month later on. But it was a good experience. And I joined the Marine Corps. I'm glad I joined the Marine Corps, and I think it was a necessary thing for me in my life and my career.
California Highway Patrolmen. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do they not drive in pairs?
Oh, sometimes they do as training officers,
okay.
but to answer your question, that's correct. They do not drive in pairs traditionally. Traditionally, it's just one guy out in there doing his thing. But a training officer, which I was Eric's training officer in the show, they just continued it that way for the rest of the show.
It was working, right?
Yeah.
Talk about the stunts in the TV show, because you did your own, but Eric wasn't too crazy about it.
Well, I did some of them, but the really hairy ones the stuntmen did. Like, I always wonder when Tom Cruise says he does all those stunts, if he really does them or it's just public relations. But
right,
they're dangerous, and if you get hurt on the show, then you just lost. In his case, $100 million movie has to shut down, right? So it's a big deal. So you got to be careful what stunts you do. I did almost all my riding on the motorcycles, and did all my jet ski stuff in the oceans and that stuff, and did all the rodeo stuff on where we did rodeo and roping and all that stuff. But in terms of like jumping off bridges onto a bus, no,
that's not gonna happen.
Laying down the motorcycle at 60 miles an hour and catching on fire.
Maybe stand up on it while it's sledding. No thanks.
Yeah.
But, Larry, a lot of people do not know this about you, but you set 8 land speed records at Utah's Bonneville Salt Flats in a Mercury LN7 car. You were also a professional rodeo member of the Cowboys Association. And you were a private pilot who has flown multiple times with the Blue Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Not too bad for a kid from Wyoming, huh?
Well, those are what a male does. He puts those little credits on his forehead and then walks around trolling,
I mean,
so I was lucky enough to get involved in celebrity car racing with the Toyotas. And that got me hooked. And then some guys asked me to come to Bonneville Salt Flats and set a land speed record. We set 8 land speed records there in that little LN7 4-cylinder car. And then I raced Formula Fords and Rabbits and Super Vs and all kinds of old trucks, Class A trucks, and Baja 1000, Baja 500, all those races I did, Mint 400, Frontier 500. And, but to be honest with you, I just always like speed, and I love airplanes. So I got to fly. I bought my own airplane. I didn't know how to fly, but I bought it. And I learned to fly in that airplane. And then I would go and fly in formation, and we would fly in on the deck and, just under and over telephone wires and stuff. We give surfers haircuts. And so when jets came around, they said, do you want to go fly with the Blue Angels? And I said, of course.
Wow.
So I got to fly with them. I did a movie with Raymond Burr, and I got to fly in A7s, and we did war games against F-16s on the weekend. And I got to fly bombing runs in the A4 at Miramar Marine Corps Base. I mean, I went and visited the Commandant of the Marine Corps in Washington, D.C., and he asked me, would I like to come back in the Marine Corps as a lieutenant and do public relations for the Marine Corps? And I said, no, but I'll quit my television series today if you'll bring me back in aviation as a fighter pilot.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
He didn't bite on that.
He didn't bite on that one?
No.
Speaking of Robert Hayes, Airplane, was always a good driver from what I read about him. He's always a good celebrity driver, the guy from Airplane. You remember him?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I raced with him before.
Oh, you did? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Small world. Yeah. Small world. Yeah. Getting back to Chips, if we can. Talk about the chemistry with the whole entire cast, because you guys look like you had a lot of fun together.
Yeah, we did. There was a time, there was an evolution there of maturity, if you will. First of all, you have two young actors, Larry Wilcox and Eric Estrada, and both young egos fighting for attention and wanting to be the star and all the benefits of stardom, so that you have longevity in your career, because it's dog eat dog in that business.
Oh yeah.
And so there were, in the beginning it was fun, and then later it got a little ugly for a while. But I think now when Eric and I laugh about how stupid we were,
right,
all the things that happened. And then there was Randy Oakes, who was a real pretty girl. There was Joe Namath's girlfriend during those days.
Wow.
And she was a really talented and beautiful model. And then there was Robert Pine, who played Sergeant Gautreer. He's a good guy. East Coast, we're all different backgrounds. He came from money and went to Yale, and his son Chris Pine's a big star now.
Yeah, big star.
He's a real gentleman, Robert Pine, and I love him. And then there was Barixa. He's a volleyball coach up in Monterey for high school. And let's see, there's little Lou. Lou I see all the time at Comic-Con here or there or something thereof. And Michael Dorn, which is interesting. The African-American guy, Michael Dorn, he would get like one line, if any, every episode, right? And so we always teased him, don't screw up this line, dude. Well, he went on to do Star Trek and became very successful and wealthy. And one day I'm at Van Nuys Airport, and I said, wow, whose F-86 fighter jet is that? And he says, Michael Dorn. I said, what? Michael Dorn? Yeah. Didn't you know he's on Star Trek? He's a big star. He has other planes, too. I said, oh, my goodness.
Wow.
But he's at the Comic-Cons often. I see him. He's a good guy. So, yeah, everyone. There was Lou Saunders, was another African-American guy. He was a real good athlete, handsome guy, and I think he's down in Atlanta somewhere. And so, I always wish him well.
Why did you leave after the fifth season? Just to do other projects?
No, I always said that, I hurried up and did the publicity that I left after 5 years. But the truth was, Eric had me fired.
Oh,
and
dang.
So Eric, which is okay. So, everyone say, well, man, that's really low. I bet you hate him. And no. So he went to his agents and managers recommended that they fire me and let only Eric be the star, because Eric didn't want any other stars at that time. And so he went to NBC, and we had been on TV for 5 years. So here was the predicament. He said, if he doesn't the star, then he's going to leave the show. Well, they had 5 years in the can, and they had a dilemma. They were in a rock and a hard place because they had to have 6 years in order to sell it to syndication and get all their money back and make a profit.
Wow.
So what choice did they have? A sacrificial item was Larry Wilcox. And so they fired me, let me go, and that went one more year, and then the show got canceled. So that's how that came about. And when I see Eric today, I never bring it up because I don't want to embarrass him or anything, and I don't want to give him guilt and all that stuff. So, but it wasn't cool, but it is business. So onward and upward.
Yeah, right. Talk about the day on the set when Eric Estrada had his really bad accident.
Yeah, Eric is, he had all these teeny boppers. He had some good-looking girlfriend.
Like John Travolta.
Oh, my God.
My goodness.
And, he always said he should have got John Travolta roles in all those movies, because he was a good dancer and, a real handsome guy and singer and all that. So he came in on his motorcycle a little hot, and the stunt guy driving the other vehicle was kind of a last-minute sub, so he went to the wrong place, and so Eric had to slam on his brakes, and he grabbed he did both brakes, the front brake and the rear brake. And if you've ever ridden a motorcycle, you got to be really careful when you grab that front brake. And so it high-sided him, meaning it threw him forward, and then the motorcycle followed him and crushed his sternum.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it came and knocked on my door and said, "Oh, Larry, there's a really bad accident. You better come out here, Eric Estrada." And so I went out there, and it was kind of like being in Vietnam again, the Marine Corps. I could see death in his eyes, And death's always haunting people. When it's ready to come, it really comes. So you better have some willpower. And I grabbed his hand to treat for shock and, tell him to just to relax, keep his head down, don't move. I'm not sure if there's a neck injury, and talked him through hang in here, don't give up, because he couldn't breathe because his lungs were filling up with fluid. And turned out he ruptured his aorta, broke his sternum, punctured his lungs, all kinds of stuff. And they gave him, so I went in the ambulance with him to the hospital, and then the priest came and gave him the last rites.
Wow.
And he was supposed to die then. And then a helicopter came and flew him to UCLA to do open heart surgery. And then they were going to fly him to Texas in those days, open heart surgery was a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. And the guy in Texas was the most famous, so he was going to do it. But then, miracle, maybe a few weeks, better. And 6 weeks later, he got out of the hospital. He didn't have to have that
he's
surgery.
Driving around momotorcycles with naked women on the back, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We welcomed him back.
Yeah, what a way for a welcome, huh?
We sent Bruce Jenner home and brought Eric back.
Well, did they bring Bruce Jenner in to try to take your role?
No, to take over Eric's role.
Really? Oh, I did not know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he did, I think Bruce did 6 episodes with us.
You guys are driving on the freeways and you guys are talking, doing dialogue back and forth. How did the sound guys make it sound so clear?
Oh, they hated us. But, there are 2 things we would do is, you can't hear anybody on those motorcycles when you're going 60 to 80 miles an hour, right? And today they have microphones so you can walkie-talkie back and forth. In those days, you just yelled back and forth. So we would do our dialogue, and they'd put all kinds of mufflers on the microphone and stuff that taped under our shirt. But it never worked. It wasn't any good. And then when they do the close-ups, they'd put our motorcycles on the trailer. And then that sometimes would work, but we almost always had to go in and dub it. So we would go in and loop our sound back in a sound booth and do it correctly. And then they would add the effects in the background. But it was a problem. Sound was always a problem.
Speaking of problems, did you have a problem with that nightstick?
Yeah, that nightstick. Someone said, "Was that your phallic symbol or was that the motorcycle?" It's like, I don't know, but it was a pain in the bottom.
Yeah, right.
Getting on the motorcycle, getting off, running with that thing sticking you, and like you felt like you were handicapped. It was really a problem.
Larry, Chips 99, the 99 reunion, by all accounts, did great in the ratings. It probably would have been a good time to get a couple of young, handsome kids to remake it. Why didn't that happen? I mean, with the good ratings, why do you think?
Yeah, that was the plan, by the way. We did, when we did Chips 99, Eric and I were the 2 older guys, and they brought in 2 young guys, one really handsome kid, and I forgot the other guy. I think it was African-American kid. They were partners, and it was kind of, I think it was their intention to spin that off as a TV series. And it was the highest rated show on TV that night that they reran Chips 99. So, and Chips was syndicated in 100 foreign countries. So it really had a good brand and marketability, if you will. Now, having said that, I'm not going to say who, but the acting was terrible. And so they had already cast those kids, and I don't know, they probably shouldn't have cast them and should have cast somebody else in one person's case. So it didn't work. You have to find the right actors, and they just didn't work. But we had a good time. It was received well. We rode the BMWs instead of the Kawasaki's, and everybody in the cast was there. It was great to see. And the only thing I wish would have been there was the old crew members, because those guys were like our family. We worked 10, 13 hours a day with.
Speaking of terrible, this actually made me pretty happy. In 2017, Dax Shepard licensed the name CHiPs and made a movie about called CHiPs, which bombed. I think the budget was $25 million. It made $19 million.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that when you saw it? I mean, did you even see it?
Oh no, I saw a little bit of it on an airplane, and I saw the trailer when they kept changing the trailer. It looked like soft porn in a Chippy uniform, It was
horrible.
And it was really, I thought, wow, you really ruined the franchise. You don't understand what you have here, And so I thought it was like a guy on crack wrote this script. It was all over the place.
Yeah, right. That was horrible.
Yeah. But he got it done and got the deal. So, it's hard to get a deal done. So God bless him.
Right. A lot of people, you talk about deals. I mean, you got into producing after CHiPs, and you're a real great negotiator. And a lot of people don't understand about negotiation in television and films. It's a lot of distribution where the money's at. And talk about how you got involved with that.
Well, I had a kind of some good mentors. My agent was David Shapira, and I had an attorney who was my manager and kind of like my dad, mentor, if you will, named Martin Leeds, who since passed. And he would constantly teach me and mentor me. And, well, you need to now branch out into production. And here's a deal memo, and you need to get these memos sent out and close these deals. And pretty soon, through osmosis, I started learning the legal language that needed to be in these deals and how to close them, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think between Martin Leeds and David Shapira and, some friends, my other legal firms and documents and contracts, and pretty soon you're talking like an attorney, notwithstanding the previous event, including a not limited to, it's like,
right.
What?
Because you can get ripped off pretty quick.
Yeah, you can. And little subtleties of language. And so it was a great learning process. And the problem with all learning processes, I think, is that you get kind of cocky about what you know, and it's what you don't know that is the problem. And I should never have thought that I was even close to being an attorney. But I did have attorneys tell me that, and I mean this with humility, this was their perspective, not mine, that I was the smartest producer they'd ever met, because I would go in and then I would rehearse with them the negatives of a contract that could occur. So make sure that we had everything covered on every base, and then make sure that we could execute on the law with respect to the contract. So it was fun.
Wow.
Fun learning process.
For me personally, one of my favorite episodes of CHiPs, if I can circle back to CHiPs real quick, the episode with Leif Garrett. And for my audience that do not know who Leif Garrett was, Leif Garrett was the Justin Bieber on steroids of his time. Was there? You talking about groupies on the set? Were they all over the place?
Oh my God! When Leif was there in his long blonde locks,
did they kidnap him or something? I forget.
His white jumpsuit or whatever it was that he was wearing. I mean, the girls just went crazy. He was a major star. And,
huge.
I was surprised that he did that show then, but pretty neat. He was a good kid too. We had a lot of fun together. He was a nice kid.
I want to go on. I was doing some research on you and watching some stuff, and this might have been recently, but there was a convention, and there was two gentlemen. One was Hulk Hogan, and one was Captain America. And Eric Estrada was leading the way. He had him sing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." That was, hilarious. Did you remember that? Yeah, that was like, what the hell is this?
Well, what happened is this is Eric and I doing pranks, right? But we have more fun on these things because we're over being celebrities, so we're at the top. Right. And there's guys that are kind of tweaked off, right? And they come in and they start screaming stuff, and then they start singing a song, and we're looking at them like, dude, what is wrong with you? And they just keep doing it. So finally we said, okay, that's good. Now let's hear, Over the Rainbow. Do you know? Oh yeah. and then they'd start singing Over the Rainbow, and then we would send them down to
oh my goodness,
the actor Battlestar Galactica or whatever it is.
Joe Girard.
Oh, he would
Joe Girard.
Yeah, and he would get so mad that we'd tell him that you want to sing for him and just start singing Over the Rainbow. We had guys just rolling.
Yeah, they were singing "Respect" by Aretha Franklin, and Eric Estrada's "The Maestro." If you ever get a chance, folks, check it out. Real funny stuff.
Yeah, he loved it.
Larry, you pretty much you're very close to getting the role of Don Johnson's role in Miami Vice. Is that true?
Yeah, I was sold. They said I got it.
Oh my goodness,
that was what's so weird. It was so heartbreaking because I went in and read for this part, Miami Vice, and I had long hair, and they said, "Well, we need to change your look. Do you mind?" And no, I'm an actor. What do you want to do? And Michael Mann was there, and he said, "Well, let's grease your hair back real greasy, and let's put a mustache on you. Let's put some like pock marks on your cheeks." And I said, "Yeah, okay." So we did all that, and I read this role. I kind of did it much different than Don Johnson, and I did him as kind of a hard-ass, mean, violent guy that was a teddy bear deep inside. And so everyone, wow, and Universal called my agent and said, "Wow, your client should have been a major movie star. This is the best reading we've ever seen."
Wow.
And so I'm thinking, dude, I got this one, I'm so good. And so then they came and said, "Would you read with all these other actors?" And I read with a bunch of actors for months. And then around Christmas, they called and said, "Larry, they think they're going to go a different way." I said, "What way?" And they said, "Well, Don Johnson." I said, "Well, he already read," and they said they didn't like him. He was terrible. But Don Johnson's a good actor. So, terrible must have meant they didn't want that type. And so I said, "Well, what do you mean? You had me read with all those jackasses, and now you're not going to let me?" And that's right. It was over. And so I just got I found my old reel. Up on YouTube, they have my acting scenes from Miami Vice, but those aren't the right ones. And so I found them, and I'm going to put them up on my LarryWilcox.net site. But I'm real proud of what I did with each and every role I did. CHiPs, you couldn't do much, but things like Dirty Dozen, I could create a character. In The Last Hard Man, I created a character. In Miami Vice, I created a character. So those are fun for me.
I know you don't do too much acting nowadays, but do you have anything coming up? Or any conventions?
I have I did a little movie. Well, I should be candid. I did a cameo role in a movie called The Wish Man. And Wish Man will be released in June. It's a wonderful film, inspirational film about the guy that started the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Oh, wow.
And so Robert Pine's in it. He's I have a little scene as a cowboy CHP with Robert Pine. And so that'll be out in June. And then right now I've just written 3 concepts for a television series. And I have a yes from one funding group, so hopefully I'll produce and be on that. But I can't discuss it.
Right. Excellent. Actually, CHiPs, you guys were the first show. You guys had the first Make-A-Wish person on this show, didn't you guys not?
Yes. Wow. Yes. Yeah, and the highway patrolman in Arizona, Frank Poncherello, he's a great guy. He's the one this movie's about, Wishman. And it's really getting promoted pretty well, so I think it'll do well.
Excellent.
And I'm sure it's going to do well because of that cameo role I had.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't it be? It would be everywhere. Are you going to be at the Hollywood show?
I was at the Hollywood show this last time, a month or so ago, but no, you try to space them out,
Right.
you want to do them every time.
I want to end this, Larry, because first of all, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. For a lot of what I do, I have a couple hundred interviews with a lot of actors that I grew up watching. It's fun for me I get to ask these questions that I never thought I'd be able to. So it's a lot of fun for me. And again, thank you so much for coming on. One of the things that I think you're probably most proud of, other than your family, you did something called Save the Flag. Tell my audience what that is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's really that funny. That is so the American Legion asked me would I be a keynote speaker at the Veterans Convention in Washington D.C. and I think Baltimore, maybe both. And so I said yes, and so I enjoy speaking, and so you wouldn't think so as a hick from Wyoming, but now I really enjoy it, and so I went there to give this speech, which I did. And for POWs and MIAs and veterans, and it, got a really good response. And then they asked me, would I meet with, I got awarded from President Bush a medal for my combat service in war in Vietnam. So I met him, and then they said, would you do this little video for Save the Flag? Because they were having this Supreme Court argument of whether you should desecrate the American flag or not.
Imagine that.
Of course, I said, no, you shouldn't. And other people said, yes, it's a freedom, rights, and so you can express yourself and no problem. Anyway, that intellectual argument went around. I went and shot this video, and they had me talk about in my war in Con Tien, which is right on the DMZ and almost in North Vietnam. And it took me like 15 times because I just kept crying. And it was then that I thought, wow, maybe you have PTSD, And so over time, I'm really proud of that little video that I did called Save the Flag. No one will ever see it probably, but I'm really proud of it.
Can they see that anywhere?
I don't know. I think I have a video copy. I'll see if I can get it up on my website as MP4 or something.
Okay.
I'd love to see my takes that they couldn't use,
Wow.
But to finish the story really quick, because I know you only have so much time. So then I did speeches at, Veterans Day and cemeteries and you name it, right? And they finally asked me to do this speech in South Bay, in the Bay area of Southern California, for a policeman or policemen that have been killed in the line of duty, and their families would be there. And so I came and I started the speech, and damn if I didn't do it again. Wow. I started sobbing and crying. I made a complete ass of myself and really ruined the event. But it was honest, and I couldn't help it, and I couldn't stop it. So that was my little war days creep out in me.
Yeah, well, you're a great American, Larry, and I really appreciate it. And again, thank you so much for your service on behalf of a grateful country. Heroes like you guys, sometimes they go under the radar, which is unfortunate, but, true bravery. And thank you so much.
You.
And
you bet.
Folks, the great Larry Wilcox, please visit LarryWilcox.net, and true gentleman. Thank you so much, Larry.
All right, thank you.
All right, Larry.
See you later.
See you later, man. Bye-bye. All right, folks, there you have it. The great Larry Wilcox, John Baker from the 1977 to 1983 show CHiPs. Great guy, true American hero. I mean, I did some research, folks, on him. He was in Vietnam, and he saw a lot of bad stuff. He was in the Tet Offensive. He was involved in that firefighting. True American hero, one of the really nice guys in the industry, and such a humble guy. That's our show for this week, folks. That's it. So tell your friends, tell everybody. Go knock on your neighbor's door right now and tell them what you just heard. You heard a great interview on Real Talk with the Hollywood Kid. Catch us every Saturday from 2 to 3 at the end of the dial at AM 1550. Folks, right now, I'll give you 2 seconds. Preset your dial right now to AM 1550 right now, and catch us every Saturday so you don't have to be looking for us. So that's our show, Real Talk with the Hollywood Kid. All our past interviews up on SoundCloud, folks. Great interviews up there. If you're not listening to this show, if you know somebody who's not listening to this show, they're really missing out on some great shows. Great shows from the old days of some great stories from a show like a CHiPs. And so, as I said, folks, get us out there. Tell everybody. Tell your coworkers. Tell your probation officers. Tell everybody. And we will see you next Saturday right here on AM 1550 WNTN. We're Real Talk with the Hollywood Kid.